What if I told you that you've been playing Trunk wrong this entire time? This video features the best tips and tricks to help you play the fake mechanical tree, Trunk. Alright, so to start off this guy, let's go to talk about Trunk's main attack, Ant Attack. Trunk spins in a circle after a short delay, dealing damage to enemies and dropping ants. Standing near ants gives Trunk a 20% movement speed boost and a 30% damage boost. The edge of the attack deals more damage to the enemies. Now with Trunk's main attack delay, you gotta take that into account before you rush into the enemy team. For all you number nerds out there, it takes 0.6 seconds for Trunk to land his main attack, which is pretty slow. So you need to be really cautious when pushing into fights because you need to preemptively attack before the enemy is even within range. This attack delay isn't as bad as Frank's one, but it is still drastic enough to lose you the engagement. Now whenever you're engaging with the enemy, try to always hit the enemies at the edge of your attack range. Being able to do 880 more damage per main attack at max level may not seem like a lot, but it can definitely change engagements where you survive or die. It's important that you always try and hit the enemies with the edge of your main attacks to get that additional damage, especially with the brutal attack delay. Now even though you don't really have to, but I always recommend that you should be aiming your main attacks so you see how far away you are from the enemy. Even though Trunk's main attacks are super easy to use because it's like playing Jackie, he's slightly more intricate than her. I would definitely recommend aiming your main attacks because you can see the radius of your main attack's range so you can deal that additional damage. Now whenever you're playing Trunk, try to always attack multiple enemies at the same time. With Trunk's attack radius, it shouldn't be too difficult to hit multiple opponents if you can. The real problem is trying to make the most out of each main attack by attacking them at the edge, or making sure that you can survive fighting multiple enemies because of your slow attack speed. Now what's pretty cool about Trunk is you can also attack through walls and obstacles kinda like Jackie can. People seem to forget this, but you can get some easy damage, pressure, and supercharge by hitting enemies through any type of obstacle. Since Trunk has this mechanic as a part of his kit, it's important that you take advantage of this to try and gain an edge on the enemy team in whatever way you can. Now with a brawler like Trunk, you need to be using bushes, walls, and obstacles to get closer to your target. Since Trunk's attack range is 3.33 tiles, which is considered short, you're gonna need to use any type of cover possible to get within range of the enemies. Especially with Trunk being a tank, tanks typically don't have long range, so play him like any other tanky brawler inside of Brawl Stars. Now this tip is super important because you always want to be standing on top of the ants to get that speed and damage buff. The cool thing about Trunk is that he drops ants every time he attacks, right? So you want to be standing inside of the same area for the most part so you can take advantage of the damage and speed buffs from the ants. It may be hard, especially in more opened up maps, but try and keep that in mind all the time. Now in order to counter Trunk's main attacks, you can either stay out of their attack range completely or just run directly to the center of Trunk's attack. Best case scenario is that you stay completely out of range of Trunk so you don't take any damage, right? Well, if you do get caught within Trunk's attack range, just run directly towards him and stay away from the edges. It'll be your best chance of surviving whenever you get surprised by a Trunk or something like that. But okay, that's gonna be it for Trunk's main attack. Let's go to talk about his super driven by revenge and ants. Trunk propels themselves at enemies, dropping ants along the way. They can bounce off of walls as well. Now as you can imagine, you want to be using Trunk's super kinda like Daryl's super where you can bounce off of walls. What I mean by this is that you can hit the enemies at off angles, catch them off guard, or hit multiple enemies if you time it right. The less predictable you can be, the more successful you will be inside of Brawl Stars, and that tip goes with pretty much any brawler. Now you can even use Trunk's super like Barry's super where you can cover the entire ground with a bunch of ants. Even though the ants won't deal damage to the enemies, being able to cover the map with ants will give you more opportunities to benefit from the speed and damage buffs that the ants provide. So using your super to cover like a choke point or a lane would be a very wise thing to do. Now you can even use Trunk's super like Bull's super to just help you travel across the map much faster. Of course, using your super to just travel around the map quicker is a great versatile tool with Trunk, especially in a game mode like Brawl Ball where you can kick the ball forward and then super up to the ball like you're self-passing it to yourself. I mean, it could make a difference in scoring a goal and not. Now in case you didn't know, Trunk also has a 50% damage reduction shield whenever he uses his super. During Trunk's super, he receives a 50% damage reduction shield for the next 0.9 seconds, which is pretty helpful. This will allow Trunk to take less damage while he is rushing in with his super, and hopefully that will keep your health up to a decent amount so you can take down your target. Now what's also pretty cool about Trunk's super is you can use it over water if you need to. So if you're playing Trunk on a map with a bunch of water, then you can use your super to travel right across of it instead of having to walk around it. This could save you time or get you closer to the game mode's objective quicker than the enemy team. And they're probably one of the most underrated ways you can use Trunk's super is to escape dangerous situations. Of course, everybody is going to use Trunk's super aggressively, but it can come in clutch when used passively as well. There may be times where you are low on health and need a way to stay alive, so just use your super to distance yourself from the enemies so you can heal up and maintain pressure on the map. But okay, that's going to be it for Trunk's super. Let's go and talk about his gadgets now, but the first one I want to talk about is Worker Ants. When activated, Trunk will gain a special shield that lasts for 2 seconds. The next time they take damage, instead of losing health, they instead gain how much health the attack would have taken. Like Nani's return to sender gadget, this only applies to one projectile. Now, probably one of the most effective ways you can use this gadget is when you are rushing into your target. Activate this gadget right before engaging in a fight because you will be able to tank damage, but also heal back to whatever is being dealt to you. Granted, it's only going to be from one projectile, but it could definitely still save your life and possibly allow you to win the engagement. Now, another clutch way you can use this gadget is when you're about to die, kind of like using Doug's super. Using this gadget right before you die could come in clutch because the enemy may think that they got you dead. But lo and behold, they'll be surprised when you don't take any damage, you'll end up healing, and then you'll be able to run away or finish the kill. I mean, it's a great way to turn the tides of the fight. Now, probably the time where I'd recommend you use this gadget the most is when you're facing against single projectile brawlers. Of course, this gadget is only super effective when tanking huge amounts of damage from single projectile brawlers. The more damage you tank from one projectile, the more you'll be healing. So it's better to use this gadget against brawlers like Brock or Piper compared to brawlers like Cole or Pam. But okay, that's going to be it for Trunk's first gadget. Let's go and talk about their second gadget for the Queen. Activating this gadget allows Trunk to instantly spawn a circular area of ants that is much larger than that of their main attack at a 2.83 tower radius, which behaves identically to that of their main attack. The ants spawned with this gadget are not affected by their star powers. Now, probably one of my favorite ways of using this gadget is to lock down a part of the map. As I stated earlier, it's unfortunate that the ants won't deal damage to the enemies when they're standing near them, but you can still use the ants to block a part of the map off. Using this gadget will make it easy for you to gain buffs from the ants, since the amount of area covered is going to be much larger and instant. Not just like with the Worker Ants gadget, you can even use this gadget right before you go into a fight. If you know you're about to engage in a fight and could benefit from the increased damage or speed, then just go ahead and use your gadget. The cooldown isn't even that long, and it's a really useful gadget that can easily help you win more engagements. Not just in general, you can pretty much use this gadget anytime you need a damage or speed buff. You don't even have to use this gadget whenever you're about to fight somebody, you can activate it when you need to run away and escape as well. That massive radius of ants will allow you to move quicker for longer, and that can help you distance yourself from the enemy so that you can survive. In a nutshell, anytime you feel like you need a damage or speed buff, just go ahead and use your gadget. But okay, that's gonna be it for Trunk's gadgets. Let's go and talk about their star powers now, but the first one I want to talk about is called Colony Scouts. With this star power, Trunk's ants reveal enemies in bushes and invisible enemies. Now yes, obviously probably one of the best times to use this star power is when you're playing on a map with tons of bushes. Common sense, right? Like if you're playing on a map with tons of bushes, then of course use this star power because it makes a lot of sense. Placing down your ants inside of bushes will allow you and your teams to see the enemies sneaking around in nearby bushes and prevent them from ambushing you blindly. Now, another time this star power can be pretty effective is when you're playing against brawlers that can go invisible like Leon. Say like a brawler like Ali, Kit, or Leon runs over your piles of ants, this star power will reveal them and expose them without the enemy even knowing it. So, placing your ant piles in critical choke points where the enemies are more likely to cross could come in clutch to stopping a sneaky brawler from getting an easy kill. Now, unfortunately, this star power is not going to be better than Trunk's second star power. This star power is pretty much only useful on maps with lots of bushes to the point where you can actually get some sort of value out of them. Unless it's a map where the enemies are constantly running around inside of bushes, it's not worth running this star power. It's not worth using this star power. Plus, the enemies can easily just destroy bushes if they can, and then this star power will be completely useless. But okay, that's gonna be it for Trunk's first star power. Let's go and talk about their second star power, New Insect Overlords. Trunk's ants apply an attack debuff on enemies, decreasing the damage output of enemies affected by 15%. Affected enemies have an additional visual effect to indicate that this effect is active, because you'll be able to see blue arrows pointing down on the enemy. and the effect will be lost when the enemy leaves the ants. I mean, this star power is so good because you can decrease the amount of damage the enemies do to you and your team. It may not seem that a 15% damage decrease is a lot, but it really does make a big difference. It will allow you and your teammates to take less damage, kind of like Crow's extra toxic star power. What's great is that if you're in a close range fight with somebody, the enemy will definitely be affected by this star power. What's great about this star power is it's going to give you so much more value on maps where there's not really a lot of bushes. It makes a lot of sense to use this star power on any map that doesn't have bushes because Colony Scouts is basically made for that situation. Granted, you could still use the star power on maps with bushes regardless, and you still should. Now I'm going to be straight with you guys, running this star power trunk is going to be better 99% of the time. The amount of times you'll be able to catch the enemy standing in the ants to debuff their damage is going to be way more likely than you placing your ants in bushes and then hoping the enemies walk on top of that. Also, being able to decrease the amount of damage the enemies can do will always outweigh a mechanic like seeing in bushes or invisible enemies. But okay, the recommended build I suggest you guys use with Trunk is using the For the Queen gadget, the new Insect Overload star power. The first gear I'm going to recommend is going to be the damage gear. You definitely have to use the damage gear because with that attack delay and you going low on health because he's a tank, yeah, you're definitely going to be dropping in health, so that increased damage is going to help you guys out. And then finally go ahead and use the speed gear. With a brawler like Trunk where you need to be playing inside of bushes, and more than likely you're going to be playing on maps with lots of bushes, so definitely run the speed gear to get the increased movement speed. Well, anyway guys, if you guys enjoyed that video, I highly recommend you guys go check out this video right here.